He was an outsider who became an icon of Irish ballads, featuring Sinead O'Connor and Nick Cave. Some strong language now in The Great Hunger, the life and songs of Shane MacGowan.
Surprises, starts to change the little ball of smoke. Stands MacGowan in celebrations, man, the ball of smoke. Fuck the yaks and drink the woods. The moon is clear, sky is bright, I'm happy as the horse is shite. Fucking a ball of smoke. Sweaty fucking blood, the one we done, the guys are done. A ball of horse, got a ball of smoke, I'm a horse smoke.
As I wandered down the long, lonesome highway, I meet other people on the way. The broken-hearted lovers who've been left along the byway, living by night and hiding from the day.
I don't think anyone writes better lyrics than Shane MacGowan. I think he's what Keith Richards would describe as a specialist. Do you know what I mean? And you know, the words are everything. You know, for him, that's where he lives, really.
The people I meet as I go on my way, they all have a story to tell. How they once had a lover who left them on the byway to wander this lonely hell. And if you know, don't let me go.
It's one of the few singers that we can say of in 1997. I mean, in 100 years' time, people will still be singing and still be playing the songs of Shane MacGowan. Who else in Ireland, even Bono, can we say that about?
I love you so. I love you so.
He's operating on 2 engines when he has 4. He's genius when he's completely fucked up. Imagine how much more genius he would be if he wasn't, you know what I mean? So that's the main kind of feeling I'm left with. Or if somebody said to me, what would you say, is that I hope he doesn't smash himself entirely, you know what I mean? Because it is a very incredible beauty that he does have.
I love you so.
In the early 1980s, Shane MacGowan and his band The Pogues seemed to have come from nowhere. Against the backdrop of the fey charms of the New Romantics, MacGowan unleashed his anarchic, drunken crew on a British public. At a time when it was neither popular nor fashionable to be Irish in Britain, MacGowan fed his audience an uncompromising diet of Irish pub and rebel songs. But it was his songwriting talent that made the Pogues one of the most popular bands of the 1980s. At this time, MacGowan's drinking and consumption of other chemicals were that of legend, and the line between his own lifestyle and the drunks and down-and-outs of his songs had become blurred. Hero to the Irish in London, MacGowan's punk thrashing of Irish music was way out of sync with the respectable face of Ireland in the 1980s. He was an embarrassment, the drunken Paddy reincarnated. It took a long time for the respectable Ireland to accept him as one of their own. This is the extraordinary story of how a North London punk transformed himself into one of Ireland's greatest living balladeers, while threatening to destroy himself in the process. Shane MacGowan was born on Christmas Day, 1957, on the banks of the River Shannon in rural Ireland.
And try your tears, babe. Take my hand, forget your fears, babe. There's no pain, there's no more sorrow. They're all gone.
He spent the first 6 years of his life in Carney Commons in County Tipperary, in this house.
What's day, what's dawning, where small birds sang, and leaves were falling, where we once watched the robots landing on the broad, majestic shine.
Well, this house has always been basically what I regarded as home. There was about 12 people living here, like, sleeping 3 to a bed, like. I usually used to sleep on that thing over there, that couch, which is more comfortable than sleeping in 3 to a bed. And the radio was next to it as well. Like, when I was a kid, there was no television in here, there was no running water. There was electric light and the hard fire to cook on. There was no cooker.
Sounds fairly basic.
Yeah, it was basic and beautiful, you know. It was the end of an era that I just happened to catch. I'm glad I caught it, you know.
The thing I remember most about the family is the music. Every weekend, and sometimes in the middle of the week, I mean, we had, I suppose, you had music, you had dancing, sit dancing in the old kitchen floor, and you had songs. So he absorbed all that wonderful traditional Irish music and singing and dancing through his pores when he was at a very formative age, you know, and just had a tremendous influence on him, you know, on his love of Irish music and on his desire really to do something for Irish music as well.
Everybody'd sing here in this room, you know, and play music and dance. And Friday, Saturday and Sunday the door was open all night, and you know, it'd be a place to go for a session, you know what I mean? It was a constant session for the whole weekend, you know. And I'd be put up on the table from the earliest stage I can remember, and told to sing what songs I knew, you know what I mean?
And do you remember when you sang that?
My repertoire gradually increased, you know. So like, I did my first gig when I was 3, you know.
The robots landing on the broad, majestic shine.
I didn't have this sort of someone who's brought up in Ireland till they're 20 or something, you know, is always cursing like the church and the Christian brothers and the small-mindedness and the gossiping and the sadism and the brutality and all the bad things you can say about our society, you know what I mean? All I ever had was happy times.
This song is called Aisling. Aisling is a woman's name, but it's also the Irish word for a dream. And I was talking to Shane backstage in Finsbury Park some years ago, and he told me about this lyric, and he sent it over to me, and I just started singing it. Look at how the bright new moon is rising above the land of black and green. Listen to the rebel voices calling, I'll not die, do you bury me? The aunt upstairs in the bed, she's calling, why is he forsaking me? Faded pictures in the hallway, put your damn brown ghost to see. Bless the wind that shakes the barley, curse the spade and curse the plough. I counted the years and the weeks and days, and I wish to God that I was with you now. Fare thee well, my black-haired darling, fare thee well, my Aisling. At night from the dreams you still haunt me, far across the great North Sea. And the wind blows north and south, to the east and to the west. I'll be like the wind, my love, I will know no rest until I return to thee. A 1, 2, 3, 4 telegraph poles burning on the cold black road. The night is bursting into morning, give us a drop of your sweet poteen. The rain was lashing, the sun was rising, and the wind was whipping through the trees. The madness from the mountains crawling when I saw you first, me own Aisling. Bless the wind that shakes the barley, curse the spade and curse the plough. I counted the years and the weeks and days, and I wish to God that it was with you now. Fare thee well, my black-haired darling, fare thee well, my Aisling. At night from the dreams of you still haunt me, far across the great North Sea. Ihoai magrahu, makalin dasog, mashlingal, mashlingal, mashlingal. Good night, my sweet black-haired dream woman. Good night, Aisling, my darling Aisling gal. And fair play to you, Shane MacGowan from Puckon in County Tipperary. But you know how to write them, by I tell you. Nice one.
In 1963, MacGowan and his family became a statistic in the massive wave of Irish immigration to Britain. His father worked for the C&A department store, and the family moved around a lot, mainly in the southeast of England.
It was very strange, you know, it's very strange, and like, I never really sort of settled down and felt there was anywhere I belonged. I think I was a bit traumatised at first, you know what I mean? But like, I didn't enjoy my later childhood, you know what I mean?
I always felt in a constant state of trauma, to tell you the truth, like, because I always felt when I came back here I let my breath out, and over there was I felt lonely, you know. Really feel that it's a part of yourself that is missing, like, and you must be reunited with it, that kind of thing.
I think a lot of the people who emigrated felt that it was a temporary arrangement. They were going to get something, like, say, wealth, jobs, education, whatever else, and then they were going to come back. There was very often no integration into English life, mainstream English life, for many of them. They didn't register to vote, they didn't participate in any sense. They very often didn't even apply for, say, council housing, for which they would have been, or to which they would have been entitled. They were all the time in their own minds going home, and they didn't want to take any further steps into life in England. Now, for children growing up in that environment, it's basically saying, look, your real life is taking place elsewhere.
We moved around a lot, you know what I mean? And, but wherever we went, like, you know what I mean? Like I said, there was a lot of relatives and stuff like that, and all living in London. And, but my parents were really unhappy, right? You know what I mean? I could tell my parents were really unhappy.
I was very unsettled for a long time. You know. I never really settled in England, you know. The English people are great, and, you know, I love them. And, but the general atmosphere is very puritanical compared with Ireland.
That's a strange thing, isn't it? You know?
It's a bit paradoxical, really, because they have all the right laws, I think, but you know, the wrong application. You know. I mean, we're the lawless people, aren't we? I mean, that's what makes us free people, I think, in a way.
9 years ago, I fell in love with a lady proud and fair. So passionate were she and I, we made fire in the air. I loved her more than life itself. She loved me just the same. And it broke my heart to think we'd part if she ended the affair. But I was brutal, I was ignorant, I was cruel, I was brash. I never gave a damn about the beauty that I smashed. No sadist yet I found delight in making my love cry. Now I'd pray for a single kiss from her to be lashed and crucified. And now I fear this lady fair can never more be mine. Long gone are nights in my lonely bed, all suffering and crying. And though I fear that through this life she'll call me only friend, till I'm dead and buried in my grave, my love will never end.
Shane left school at 16 and spent most of his time drifting around Soho and Piccadilly. He found casual work based around the two enduring loves of his life, working as a barman and on a record stall. Then, in 1976, punk happened.
It was quite a violent year in 1976. It's been getting more violent since the early 70s, and it sort of peaked in 1976. Just fingers up type music and fingers up type attitude, and the whole sort of vacant, nihilistic sort of thing they put across was the way that I was feeling, and most people of my age were feeling, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I remember once he told me that he had only really ever been happy during punk since his childhood. And the happiness was somehow linked to this sense of energy and chaos. And I think punk gave him that sense of belonging.
It was a scene, you know. Like, I mean, there's like about 100 punks in London, you know what I mean? It's like, you know, if you saw another punk, you know, it was like, you know, you immediately sort of made contact. I was at the front of the audience at a Clash gig at the ICA with this girl called Jane, who was later in the Moldettes, and we were biting each other, and then it got more outrageous, and she broke a bottle and started carving me up, and she got me in the ear, and your ear bleeds a lot, you know what I mean? So this photographer took these photos, you know, an enemy photographer, I think it was. It looked as if my ear had been, he said, and in the article it said my ear had been bitten off, you know what I mean? But I hadn't, it just been cut, bit by the bottle, you know what I mean?
Shane certainly was photographed a lot. He had the front cover on signs, lying on his back. I mean, I feel in many ways that he became a victim of that image, because a lot of it was almost like you were only seeing a very small percentage of who he was, and I can't help thinking that maybe he started to pursue that small part and lost a lot of the bigger parts.
The ethos of punk was DIY, and everyone wanted to start a band. Shane MacGowan was no exception, forming the Nipple Erectors in 1978.
He was great. He had a great stage presence. He did a lot of kind of drops to his knees. He just had charisma. He had a lot of star quality. We went along expecting it to be a lot of fun. You know, Shane's band. It didn't expect it to be so good. What knocked me out was the songs. The songs were great.
The most famous song, Gabrielle, it was very melodic, and I think you can trace a lineage from Gabrielle onwards of sort of ballad writing, where he became the master of that, really, when no one else was doing it in the 80s. So it wasn't really punk at all, that sensibility. It was actually very refined.
We were all right, you know. Nothing to write home about. We were a good live band, you know.
When MacGowan wound up the Nips to think about creating his new act, the Pogues, the British charts were dominated by the synthesizer sounds of the New Romantics.
That was at a time where everything was really boring again. It was like tail end of New Romantics and all that, and like it was the era of the one faggot and a guy on a synthesizer bands. You know what I mean?
I love you whether or not you love me. I love you even if you think that I don't.
You know, having expected the Clash to change the world, and all it actually led to was Howard Jones. Those of us who've been through the cleansing fire of punk rock expected a little bit more, I think. And I think it seems to me that's where the Pogues idea was coming from.
The only alternative was these world music bands, you know what I mean? There's lots of world music bands about playing South American music and African music, you know what I mean? And like the closest I'd ever been to Africa was Notting Hill Gate, you know what I mean? I thought we've got our own indigenous ethnic folk music on our doorstep.
I think the great thing about the Pogues was they, instead of coming at folk music like Steel Eye Span and Fairport Convention with respect, they came at it, got hold of it by the lapels and threw it down the stairs. Nobody have never really gone at it like a bunch of navvies, if I can use that phrase. You know, we sort of like messed it around and put a power drill on it and see what came out. And that's what the Pogues did. It was really exciting when you saw them. It was really exciting. It was like seeing the Clash. It was like going to a punk gig. It was folk music.
Shane particularly was drawing on an Irish music that was populist and popular from a decade or so before this, from probably the late 50s, early 60s.
And as I went home on Tuesday night, as drunk could be, I saw a coat behind the door where my old coat should be.
If you take the Dubliners as the archetype of that, they sang a lot of bawdy, dirty songs, and they sang songs about drinking and excess.
That coat behind the door where my old coat should be. Ah, you're drunk, you silly old fool. Still you cannot see. That's a wall.
Well, they were a real favourite of my dad's, right? Like the Ronnie Drew ones, you know what I mean? The dirty songs, all that, you know what I mean? They were a big influence, yeah. Still are, you know. I mean, as a kid, I was mad at them, you know.
Where my old pipe should be. Well, I called me wife and I said to her, will you kindly tell to me who owned that pipe upon the chair where my old pipe should be?
There's a sense of humor that runs through, a very black sense of humor that runs through Irish music. You know, just anything bad that happens, it's funny, and they'll find a way to turn the phrase to make it funny. What Shane did that was different was he didn't always do that. He didn't always sugarcoat it. He just like sort of put it right in your face. I suddenly got it. I suddenly understood what that sense of humor in most of the Irish songs that I'd heard was hiding. And when he connected to his heritage, you know, something really, really profound happened in Camden.
We've got a really rowdy kind of boozy, like, you know, mad kind of audience, you know what I mean? And they all came out of the woodwork, you know, these people who'd been nuts about Irish music for years, or people from Irish families who'd heard it all their lives at home, you know what I mean? And or on the jukebox in Irish pubs, you know what I mean?
This band was a distinctively Irish band, but an Irish band which couldn't have emerged in Ireland. This was a London Irish band. I mean, this was the brashness, the aggression, and the energy of McAlpine's Fusiliers in the pub on a Friday night.
Poor Paddy was thinking of going so heaven.
the London Irish felt, and rightly so, that they had been to some extent second-class citizens in the country that they lived in, and also that they were a source almost of embarrassment to people in Ireland, the whole culture of the labourer and paddy working on the railways and drunkenness and all the rest, and some of that's true, of course. For people, London Irish people, Shane MacGowan was the first voice, the first person that arose from within them to give defiant and poetic expression to a community which had never really felt able to proclaim itself.
One summer evening, drunk to hell, I sat there.
Over the next few years, the Pogues released 3 commercially and critically successful albums. The single most important thing that catapulted them out of a London Irish ghetto was the sheer quality of Shane MacGowan's songwriting.
Johnny sang about a thing called love, and it's how are you, kid, and what's your name, and how did you...
I mean, okay, his voice is very Irish, but the emotion that comes out is international. I mean, people all over the world relate to Shane's stories.
And the only thing that I could see was a pair of brown eyes that was looking at me. But when we got back, labelled parts 1 to 3, there was no pair of brown eyes waiting.
I think the first one I learned was a pair of brown eyes, and I loved the imagery of that. It reminded me very much of a great granduncle of mine who was blown up in the First World War. And a couple of years ago I was over in Ypres in Belgium, and I found his name on the wall. And that night I was playing at this big festival, and I spoke about him to all these Belgian and French people and German people, and I sang The Pair of Brown Eyes. And it was just, I felt the whole audience felt what I'd felt that day through Shane's song.
I like to write about what's happening around me rather than my own personal angst.
Whistling in the trees where the wind was gently laughing, and a robin will go.
For me, what's happening around me is affecting what's going on inside me anyway. You know, they're not separable. You know.
A lot of the time, the actual songs are structured like little narratives. If you think of a great Pogues song like "The Old Main Drag" being one of the best songs he has ever written, it's romantic, but it's unflinching. It's graphic. It's not a song about, as some of the old Dubliner songs would be, like McAlpine's Fusiliers would be about builders or people who built the roads, and it's about rent boys. It's about the flotsam and jetsam of the exiles' experience. It's about people lying in Soho, taking downers and getting drunk to get them through their life.
One evening as I was lying down in Leicester Square, I was picked up by the coppers and kicked in the balls. Between the metal doors at Vine Street I was beaten and mauled, and I ruined my good looks for the old main drag. In the tube station the old ones who were on the way out would dribble and vomit and grovel and shout, and the coppers would come along and push them about. And I wished I could escape from the old main drag. And now I am lying here, I have had too much booze. I've been spat on and shot on and raped and abused. I know that I am dying and I wish I could beg for some money to take me from the old main drag.
Shane always gave money to beggars. I don't know if he still does, but he always gave money to beggars whenever he saw them. And if drunks approached him, he always gave them some money. And there was a way that he would talk about an expectation that's where he was going to be someday, you know. And that he didn't sound like a fear to me. You know, if nothing else is working, I can always go on the embankment with a bottle of meths, you know, and strum a guitar and earn enough money to drink.
I remember meeting him once, and I was coming from a warehouse party or something in King's Cross, and he was coming along the pavement, probably at 4 a.m. on a December night, freezing cold, sleet, in just, you know, his shirt open, and these sort of like plimsolls and very flimsy trousers, you know, and he was scrabbling around trying to find money that he was given a down and out some money, and he some of it had rolled off the pavement, and he was with his bottle of wine. It was an extraordinary sight, for this was a guy who had, you know, just had a top 10 hit. You know, the celebrity never seemed to intervene at all on the way he lived his life.
We were thinking of doing a song together or something like that, and he said, you know, I've got fucking thousands of the fucking songs or whatever. And I'm going, well, look, you know, let's see some. And he goes, they're over there, like that. And there's this sort of pile of garbage over in the corner, and I kind of go over there and sort of start pulling out these pieces of paper, and there's like great songs on it, and they're just sort of thrown over in a pile. And, you know, I mean, so I think he goes around. The creative process for him is in a very irreverent one in a way, but at the same time, they are very considered, his songs as well. It's quite odd, really.
He has a genuine will to live. He has a genuine desire to be alive and to be in a human body. He doesn't, you know, it doesn't appear that way because doctors tell him that he's got to stop drinking, and he doesn't stop drinking, so people think that he must have a death wish, but in actual fact that's not the case. He just doesn't enjoy life without a drink, I think that's the way it is.
Every now and then it screws up, and I'll do something like this, you know, and break my hip, you know what I mean? Or a taxi knocks me 18 feet across the road or something, you know what I mean? But like, I'm not out of control, you know what I mean? I have been out of control over the years for long periods, you know what I mean? But I always managed to pull back from the edge before I go into the abyss, like, you know what I mean? It's true that I am out of it most of the time, right? But I can write songs and I'm out of it. You know, in fact, it's easier for me to write songs and I'm out of it.
I've been loving you a long time, down all the years, down all the days. And I've cried for all your troubles, smiled at your funny little ways, watched our friends grow up together, and we saw them as they fell. Well, some of them fell into heaven, and some of them fell into hell. Well, I took shelter from a shower, and I stepped into your arms. On a rainy night in Soho, the wind was whistling all its charms,
now this song is nearly over. We may never find out what it means, but there's a light I hold before me, and you're the measure of my dreams, the measure of my dreams.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Pogues from London.
When Shane first took the Pogues across the Irish Sea, the great and the good reacted with both horror and amusement.
I think Shane's real quality was entirely missed by many people for a long time. As Ireland became modern and urbanised, I mean, the great social changes that took place in Ireland in the 60s made people sort of enthusiastic for putting the cultural sounds and, of the past behind them.
Kicks you in the brains. You went back in through out the door and did it all again. I'm sick, but I'm good, Colin. Well, now let's say a prayer. The ghosts are rapping at the door. The devil's
They resisted putting a high valuation on the music of the Pogues. They didn't want that trashy music, trashily played, brought back into this newly respectable world.
Your performances, it says here, have been described as sordid, rowdy and vulgar.
Wow,
What about the complaints and the criticisms of you that you're sort of bringing Irish music into disrepute and you're playing up the Paddy and the drunken Paddy image and so on?
Well, we started out playing in bars, you know.
There was a dynamic in Ireland going on between people who wanted to go forward into this brave new world of, you know, sophistication. People there were very disturbed about this bunch of boys coming from England and bringing back this music that they thought they'd banished forever, you know. And somehow in their head was, you know, it was Devil Era's music, you know. We don't want to go back there.
Well, it's summer style.
By the end of the 80s, the Pogues' moment in British pop history had passed. A combination of splits over musical direction and Shane's increasing use of drink and drugs led to their eventual demise. Since MacGowan's split with the Pogues, interest has centred more on the state of his health than on his musical output. He has, however, formed a new band called the Popes, releasing a critically acclaimed album, The Snake, in 1994. In the 1990s, Shane has been recognised as an icon in Ireland to rank alongside the likes of Brendan Behan. MacGowan's thrashing of the culture revitalised it, but like Behan, the irreverence stemmed from his own detailed knowledge and respect of Ireland's past.
I'll tell you a story. I sang with him there was a television programme in Ireland here a couple of years ago, and it was I was singing with a lot of different people on it. So Shane came over from London to sing with me, and he said he'd love to sing Spancil Hill. So I started off singing it, and he said, stop. No, he pulled me up. He said, that's not the way you recorded it. That's not the way I learned it. And this is a recording I made 25 years ago, and he had it word for word, and he couldn't handle the fact that it had changed a bit. And I loved that. I thought that was great, you know. And I changed it, and I went back and I sang it the way he wanted to sing it. And it was lovely.
To see me neighbours, see what they would say. The old ones, they were dead and gone. The young ones turned in grey. I met with Taylor Quigley. He's as bold as ever stood. Sure, he used to make me breeches when I lived
a flying visit to me first and only love. She is fair as any lily and gentle as a dove. She threw her arms all round me, said, Johnny, I love you still. Oh, she's Mac, the ranger's daughter, and the pride of Spansel Hill.
A chance I hug and kiss her, as in the days of yore. She said, Johnny, you're only joking, as many's the time before. The cock crew in the morning, he crew both loud and shrill, and I awoke in California, many miles from Spansel Hill.
There has been a certain mood of celebration in Ireland, but in a way they were celebrating liberation from the past and liberation from having to be defensive about being Irish, and Jack Charlton's football team epitomised that in the sense that everybody from Ray Houghton to Bono are going out into the world to represent Ireland, and that can dull, and often does dull, our critical faculties about the worth of some of these phenomena. But of course, I mean, it didn't have to dull our critical faculties in relation to Shane MacGowan, who remains perhaps the one authentic genius who came out of that whole mood of the celebration of Irishry and its various manifestations in that period.
As Ireland's come to terms with its own past and looks afresh at its history, so Shane in his later work explores his direct relationship with the Irish tradition, looking beyond his immediate antecedents like the Dubliners and Brendan Behan to a doomed 19th century romantic poet, the Gothic figure of James Clarence Mangan.
Last night as I lay dreaming my way across the sea, James Mangan brought me comfort with laudanum and poachine. He flew me back to Dublin in 1819 to a public execution being held on Stephen's Green.
Yeah, I like Mangan's poetry, yeah, and I liked his lifestyle as well. I admire the way he lived his life, you know, and of his views, you know. He was a Republican alcoholic junkie, you know. It's something that I can identify with, you know. He didn't think about what he did when his health started suffering, so he died young, you know. But, you know, I mean, like, I'd always put my health first, you know. Although painful as it may be, you know.
Where's the pub?
I mean, I hate the mythology of self-destruction. I really hate it. It's so easy and so consumer-friendly. You know, artists or pop stars, you know, as fireworks, you know, lighting up some people's dull skies. I don't know. It's just, I think Shane's much smarter than all that, and I don't think he's, you know, he buys into all that.
There's two types of people. There's potential addicts, and there's people who've got some kind of inner strength which protects them against addiction.
Where's the pub? Where's the pub? Where is it?
A lot of people who are partners with alcoholics find themselves in a situation where their life kind of starts to revolve around the other person's drinking. The husband or wife of the alcoholic makes their mission to control the other person. That's really not very practical, because you can't, no matter how much you try. You know, you can advise people, and you can like put up little signposts, but I don't think you can really tell somebody else what to do. I think you've got to let them find out for themselves. I think once I realised that, life got a lot easier, all round, you know.
I'm an addictive personality, yeah. I'm not an alcoholic. I used to drink a lot more than I do now.
We have one for shape of red here, the rest of it is red for it. So we have black here, one for
Tis far better to part, though it's hard to, than to rot in their prison away. 'Tis far better to part, though it's hard to, than to rot in their prison away. So softly then kiss her pale lips. It was the same story over and over. Hush, Maureen, the police are watching. And you know that I must go ashore. Hush, Maureen, the police are watching. And you know that I must go ashore.
In a day I'll be over the mountains. There'll be time enough left for to cry. So good night and God guard you forever. And write to me, won't you? Goodbye. So good night and God guard you forever.
And write to me, won't you? Goodbye.
What do you say to people like who say that, you know, you're killing yourself, you're drinking too much, you shouldn't drink?
I'm not drinking too much.
That's what you say to them?
Yeah.
You're not drinking enough.
I am drinking enough.
Well, that's fair.
As a general rule, you know. I mean, like, it's probably best to drink not quite enough, you know.
And does it piss you off when people try and lecture you or try and save you or try and say you drink too much?
Of course, yeah. I'm a big boy, I know what I'm doing, you know.
And do you get that a lot? Do you get people trying to...
Yes, yeah. I do, yeah.
And how do you deal with that?
Telling her to fuck off, yeah.
A couple of years ago, I was making a record and I asked Shane MacGowan for had he any songs that'd suit me. So he sent me this song. It's a song about the famine, the Great Famine in Ireland, which happened between 1845 and 1847. And at one stage, people in a certain part of the west of Ireland in County Mayo, they didn't have the strength or the ability to, the land to bury their dead properly, so they were reduced to burying them in the sand dunes by the seashore. And he wrote this song called The Dunes. I walked today on the cold grey shore where I watched when I wasn't much younger. Well, they built the dunes upon the sand for the dead from the great hunger, for the dead from the great hunger. Although I was a doctor's son, I gazed in fear and wonder as I perished from the raging plague that come in with the great hunger, that come in with the great hunger. When I watched at the age of 4 in 1847, the mounds they built upon the shore, they seemed to point to heaven, they seemed to point to heaven. The wind and the rain have worked away, the dunes they are all uneven, the children kicked the sand around, and the bones they are revealed then, and the bones they are revealed then. My brothers and my sisters died, my mother only 24, and I alone survived to see the potatoes grow in plenty, the potatoes grow in plenty. As we died in vain, they stole our grain to put upon their tables. The dying covered the dead with sand, and danced while they were able, and danced while they were able. And the fiddler played, we drank poteen, then ate the last of the berries, then knelt and said the rosary, round the mounds of dead we'd buried, round the mounds of dead we'd buried. I saw dark shadows rise up from the sand, dance all around the dunes. They danced the rattling dance of the dead to a set of mournful tunes, to a set of mournful tunes. A crack of lightning split the sky, the rain on the dunes it poured. I left them lying where I shot them down, the bailiff and the landlord. Then I went for a drink in Westport. I walked today on the cold grey shore where I watched when I was much younger, while they built the dunes upon the sand for the dead from the great hunger, for the dead from the great hunger.
Folk Hibernia, next on BBC 4.
Cause I love you so.